is Emily Iannielli, and I am a male to female transgender woman, and I go by T-Girl Angel. That's my name that I use, T-Girl Angel. And I'm doing a video tonight about depression, which is something that I definitely can relate to. And I know that there are many transgender individuals who also struggle with depression, and it's a very serious issue. And there has been quite a few sad stories within the recent weeks of transgender suicides, and in all these tragic circumstances, depression was a big part of their struggles, and it was very sad. Each person who died, the hardest part of being transgender is knowing that you have this difficult struggle, and you're not able to talk to anyone, not even your family. It's very tragic that so many transgender individuals are very miserable, depressed, frustrated, and a lot of them resort to drugs, alcohol, to escape their pain. It's a very sad situation, and I believe that we have to try to find resources to help, especially the youth who struggle with their gender identity. They need to have places that are sanctuaries for them, where they can open up and express themselves. If they're not able to talk to family, they need to talk to someone. They can't bear that burden all by themselves. It's very painful, and if you're all alone and you have no one to turn to, it's a struggle. Believe me, I know, I've been there, but I've been lucky. I want to share a post that I did on Facebook recently, and I think it's pretty appropriate for the timing of these tragic instances of suicide. There were two individuals that I read about in recent news events who committed suicide. 17-year-old trans girl, Leela Alcorn, who was not accepted by her family and was pushed into therapy, where they tried to convert her feelings. I think it's called conversion therapy, which is not appropriate for someone who's transgender. If they identify as transgender, they should have the choice to transition to be the gender that they wish to be, rather than be forced to live a sentence of being trapped in the gender that they don't identify with. So sadly, given the circumstances of Leela and her relationship with her family and their disapproval of her, she committed suicide, and she also documented it in her blog with her suicide note, which was very tragic and sad. And then I learned about a girl, trans girl, 24 years old, from Istanbul, Turkey, and her name is was Iannielli, and she stated the following. She was born in 1992. Her name, Iannielli, ended her life by jumping off the Bosphorus Bridge on Saturday night. Canson left a video as a suicide note saying, "Many people were my friends, but they turned out not to be my friends. I couldn't do it anymore. That's what I've learned. I'm doing the thing everyone wants me to do. I couldn't because people did not let me. I was born in 1992. Now I must be 24, and I am ending my 24 years. Kisses to everyone. I couldn't, because people did not let me. I couldn't work. I wanted to do stuff. I couldn't. You get me? They impeded with me many times. They made me suffer a lot. I leave everyone alone with God, and now I'm going to the Bosphorus Bridge. Kisses to all. God bless you." Hanson wanted her mother to take care of her little dog at her place, resulting in a huge despair in social media by her words. "Whenever you look at it, remember only me, and don't give it to anyone else. When you see it, say, 'This is my child.' Don't get angry at it." Very tragic. Poor Lila and poor Iannielli. This is a picture of Iannielli Canson. She was a beautiful young lady who tragically committed suicide because she also struggled with trying to find an employment opportunity, and she was turned down. So now I'm going to read my post that I wrote recently on my Facebook page. Life has changed considerably for me. I never thought I would be able to have a family and such a wonderful son. I am happier now, but I still struggle with depression and have been in the hospital many times. I had tried to do something I shouldn't have, and thankfully someone out there reacted and called the paramedics, who brought me to the hospital. I never wished to be the way I am. It just seemed to happen, and I don't really have an explanation for it. I know I am not alone, and have come to meet nice people who are just like me. I thought I would live my life the way I was supposed to, but it was very hard for me, and no one could understand me. I buried my feelings and tried to pretend to be someone I just couldn't relate to. I was very depressed growing up and trying to fit in. It was a struggle for me, and sometimes I felt like ending the pain I felt inside. I was desperate and had no one to turn to. I held on to hope and my belief in God to help get me through my emotional pain. I never thought I would ever find inner peace, but I pushed on with the hope that one day I would rise above my inner turmoil. I felt trapped and all alone many times, and I cried and wished things would be different. I managed to put the pieces of my life together and figure out what I was going to do with my life. I was always trying to be the perfect everything, but I was never truly perfect. I had many issues, but am better for the struggles I live with. It has made me a stronger person. I always looked up to my mom and dad and tried to be like my dad, but knew in my heart that it wasn't going to happen that way. I was different. I was shy. I was afraid. I was sad. I was lonely. I was depressed. I was lost. I was a puzzle that couldn't be solved because there were missing pieces. I tried to make friends and to fit in. I struggled with that and basically buried myself into my schoolwork and sports. I wasn't great, but I held my own. I think the best thing to come of my life to this day is becoming a father to a sweet and beautiful son. I was so happy, and I thought marriage and family would help me to forget my inner struggle. I fought very hard and tried to be the best I could be. It wasn't easy, and I was very closed off. I was very loving and still am with my son. We are very close, and we both have our hardships. I am very proud of my son, and I think the world of him. He makes me smile and realize all the beauty of life. He literally helps me to continue my fight and to find my inner strength. He accepts my shortcomings, and I am his biggest supporter, along with his mother. We are a typical family with some unconventional problems, but we are still a family, and we love each other. I tried all my life to live up to a standard and felt like I missed the mark. I didn't know what it felt like to be normal, because I knew I was very different. I could not express it or tell anyone. I had to keep it a secret and just try to accept my situation, even though I was very sad and depressed, since I was a child, knowing I had these feelings that were not typical for boys to have. The hardest thing to face is the truth. We can deny, repress, suppress, hide, and run away from it, but eventually it will catch up to you, and eventually you will have to face it and do what you must to be who you truly are. I have learned this valuable lesson, but it has come at a price. Unfortunately, we live in a world that is unforgiving and very critical. If you don't fit the mold, you are ostracized for it. That is why, sadly, many of us who do have differences won't admit it. We find ourselves living in the shadows, never being true to our inner spirit. If we don't connect to our true self, then our life isn't what we would have hoped. The tragedy is many who struggle with being different are too afraid to live the life the way they feel inside. In those cases, they either live a quiet, resolute life, or they decide to end their pain and never realize their true identity. We as a society should realize that diversity and differences are perfectly fine. The world would be a boring place if we all conformed to a certain standard. That is not reality. We can't change who we truly are, and we shouldn't. We should do all we can to be truthful and honest and live our life the way we feel inside our soul. No one should pass judgment on us. They don't really know us. If we were forced to live our life to just conform rather than to be, then what good is that? We would be miserable and feel empty inside. It is time that we who are different to stand up and fight for what we truly believe. I am very sad about a young transgender girl named Leila Alcorn, a boy at birth who identified as a girl, who sadly committed suicide at the tender age of 17 years old because her family was too ignorant to understand and accept her for the girl she truly was. This should never have happened, and it is very disturbing and very tragic. Why is it so hard for people to understand that some of us are just plain different? We shouldn't have to hide and live in pain. We should be able to make choices that will bring us inner happiness and joy. No one should steal that away from us. It took me over 50 years to finally admit I too am transgender, male to female. I am not ashamed of it. In fact, I am very proud. I am also very proud to have a son and to be called Dad, despite my transition to become female, because the truth of the matter is I am still and always will be a dad to my son. I will be the same person, but much happier. My son is my life, and he gets it. He struggles with autism. I struggle with transgender and depression. I no longer hide. I am free to be my true self, and I am much happier now. No one should judge me for how I live my life. They should just learn tolerance and acceptance. Unfortunately, in Leela Alcorn's life, and also Ilil Kanson's life, that was not the case. Their deaths should never have happened, but unfortunately they have, and hopefully it will make society realize that transgender individuals have a right to live their lives as they truly feel, and there is nothing wrong with that. I pray for both of these trans women and all transgender individuals who took their own lives because they were not understood or accepted. This hatred and tolerance has to end, and we all must come to love and accept each other as we truly identify. Dedicated to the memory of Leela Alcorn and to Ilil Kanson. Now, I also printed an article about depression and transgender, and the focus is on tackling one of the best understood mental illnesses, which happens to be depression. This is written in an article from the Gender Center, Inc. in Australia by Gianna E. Israel. The article appeared in Polari magazine on July 2014. July 2004. And it was last reviewed on February 2014. Depression is the leading mental health issue faced by transgender persons. However, unless a client or reader's depression has progressed to crisis proportions, it is the subject I am least likely to receive questions about. Depression is also the leading mental health issue faced by those who do not have a transgender identity. With this knowledge, it should be clearly understood that when transgender persons are depressed, it does not mean that having a transgender identity or fulfilling one's cross-dressing needs is pathological, mentally disordered, or medically diseased. Both transgender and non-transgender populations are equally unlikely to receive treatment for depression. This is tragic because depression is one of the best understood mental illnesses with recognizable symptoms and effective interventions. People do not seek treatment for a variety of reasons. Some individuals allow themselves to suffer tremendous pain, believing that obtaining help is shameful or a sign of weakness. Typically, these persons have brought into the notion that mental health issues are stigmatizing or less important than medical conditions. In other words, people are more likely to seek treatment after contracting a painfully sexually transmitted disease than get help for depression. It does not seem to matter how much emotional turmoil the person is suffering. Within both populations, there also exist numerous persons who recognize that they are moderately to severely depressed. Some of these individuals do not seek treatment because they believe it will be ineffective, or they are suspicious of the medical and mental health professions. Because transgender persons continue to be discounted, misdiagnosed, or characterized as pathological, particularly by professionals unfamiliar with gender identity issues, it is understandable that some will feel hesitant in seeking support for depression. This concern is an important dynamic in supporting transgender persons. I will address it after providing basic information about depression itself and how it is identified. Depression is a mood disorder characterized by extended feelings of sadness, loss, restlessness, discouragement, hopelessness, self-doubt, and guilt. These feelings are often accompanied by noticeable changes in a depressed individual's regular sleeping, eating, and sexual habits. They are also likely to have changes in self-perception, think negative thoughts on an ongoing basis, have difficulty making decisions, and sometimes contemplate self-destructive acts. Their emotions typically swing sharply between feeling angry, sad, melancholic, or moody. Depression is not about having one or several isolated bad or low energy days. It's about feeling badly and having an emotionally poor quality of life day after day, with no hope of relief in sight. The preceding description reflects the state of mind that characterizes depression and lends understanding to why people do not seek treatment. The more severe the depression, the more limited an individual's ability to think realistically or recognize options which might improve their quality of life. Simply stated, most depressed persons routinely discount treatment options until everything else has failed. This type of clouded judgment also frequently slows the resolution of gender issues. Depressed transgender persons frequently feel compelled to move ahead in their transition without seeking adequate support. Also, in order to gain acceptance and reduce emotional turmoil, they may disclose their transgender issues without having taken into account potential consequences or its effect upon others. It is well documented within professional literature that depression can be caused by either one or a combination of medical, psychological, or circumstantial factors. As a result, there are a variety of treatment approaches which is designed to address this disorder. Therefore, while it is a positive step for people to acknowledge they are depressed, deciding one's own course of treatment or self-medicating is irresponsible and dangerous. A professional familiar with the treatment of depression should be consulted. In some circumstances, antidepressant medications may be useful, particularly when an individual is in crisis or experiencing debilitating emotional pain. Most antidepressants are designed to take the edge off of the extreme lows or sharp mood swings which accompany severe depression. They provide temporary emotional relief, allowing the individual an opportunity to build coping skills. Antidepressants vary in their recommended length of use, and several also address depression-related anxiety or manic depression. Education within individual psychotherapy also plays an important treatment role and may be coupled with medication. In learning about depression, people frequently feel that the tremendous pain they are suffering will never end. Being reassured that despondent feelings do resolve and that positive change is possible is an important part of treatment. It is also helpful for people to find out that they are not alone and that there are numerous instances of successful treatment. Because depression exacerbates social isolation, peer support or group therapy can provide individuals with positive social contacts and an opportunity to hear how others combat depression. It should be noted that in providing depression treatment to transgender persons, there exist several dynamics which frequently prevent persons from seeking help. As previously mentioned, transgender persons routinely have been characterized as mentally disordered because their cross-dressing and gender identity issues seem unusual to non-transgender persons. Regrettably, such attitudes still exist today within the medical and mental health professions, particularly in locations that do not have access to up-to-date professional literature on gender identity issues. Both care providers and transgender persons should understand that having a transgender identity or individual cross-dressing needs does not cause depression. Rather, they are caused by experiencing seemingly unresolvable social and circumstantial pressures. Learning effective coping skills which can currently resolve these pressures while preserving a person's gender identification is the correct approach in these situations. Transgender persons also avoid treatment for depression because it is widely believed that in order for treatment to be effective, both gender identity and depression issues must be addressed at the same time. This is not always the case. In some situations, it is possible to provide symptom relief without having to immediately deal with gender identity issues. Individuals may seek support for their depression, stressing that they are not interested in discussing gender identity issues until they feel safe doing so. If it becomes necessary. Those who feel that disclosing their gender issues may prove compromising or be met with negativity may choose not to. Rather, they can utilize the break from emotional anguish which is available through traditional depressive symptom relief to seek gender specialized resources for their cross-dressing or gender identity issues. Having two care providers, one who dispenses depression treatment and the other who offers gender specialized support, is useful in many circumstances. This is particularly so when a transgender person does not yet have a sufficient level of communication skills and knowledge about gender identity issues to disclose to a helping professional unfamiliar with gender identity issues. The interpersonal difficulties and social hostilities which transgender persons experience can play a large role in causing or aggravating depression. This is particularly true for individuals who are coming to terms with gender issues without the assistance or awareness of gender specialized resources. Coming out, disclosure concerns, balancing transition costs, social isolation, family rejection, and being single or unable to find acceptance from a significant other are some of the recognizable sources of depression in transgender persons. Less frequently acknowledged contributors to depression include unresolved gender identity conflicts in pre- and post-operative persons, pre- and post-surgical emotional adjustment, poor body image, and low self-esteem. Transgender hormone administration also may play